Hey guys, today's episode with Grace Norman is presented by Compassion International, the most trusted child development ministry in the world. And due to COVID-19, 70,000 children and their families in compassion programs are in desperate need of help and need your urgent support. 70,000 also happens to be the capacity of an average pro football stadium. And this is what Compassion decided to do. They weren't going to sit on the sidelines and watch these 70,000 kids and their families be washed away. No, they're stepping in the gap, filling the gap, standing in the gap for these 70,000 kids. We're almost there. We are more than 75% of the way filling this stadium. Over 60,000 seats have been filled, but we're still in need of your help. We're not there yet. So please consider donating. Check out fillthestadium.com to learn more about this stadium that cannot remain empty with Compassion International. Fillthestadium.com.
Welcome to Sports Spectrum, where we bring Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, former ESPN producer, Jason Romano.
Welcome, everyone, to the show. I am Jason Romano. So glad you're tuning into our Sports Spectrum podcast today. And we got a great conversation coming up with Grace Norman, the Paralympic Gold Medalist from 2016. And she's going for it again here in 2021 at the Paralympic Games, Tokyo 2020 in late August. Can't wait for you to hear the conversation with Grace. Before we do that, just want to tell you about sportspectrum.com. That's our website, our home base for all of our content. You can check it out, sportspectrum.com. Devotionals every morning at 6 a.m. Podcasts, all of our Sports Spectrum Podcast Network shows are on the website. And then, of course, articles, stories, people like Grace Norman, articles on those intersecting sports and faith. We're bringing Jesus back into the sports conversation. And check it out, all of it at sportspectrum.com. And make sure you subscribe to our weekly newsletter as well. When you're there, just click that newsletter icon, put your email address in, and you'll be good to go to stay in touch with all that we have going on here at Sports Spectrum. We got Grace Norman coming up. Like I said, a 2016 Paralympic Gold Medalist, 5-time ITU Paratriathlon World Championship medalist, 2 golds, 1 silver, 2 bronzes. She's a 2-time USA Paratriathlon national champion in 2014 and 2019. I am always in awe when I talk to a Paralympian who has overcome the odds. And in Grace's case, she has her left leg amputated, her right big toe below the knee as well amputated when she was young. And she perseveres all the way to being a Paralympic gold medalist. She's got an incredible story going through Cedarville University in college, wanting to become a nurse and doing great things, all led by her faith in God. Take a listen to Grace Norman. She's joining us here today on Sports Spectrum. Hi, Grace. Welcome to Sports Spectrum.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. First of all, congrats. You're getting a chance again at going to the Paralympic Games, Tokyo 2020, even though it's 2021. You are officially qualified. How exciting was it to see all that hard work pay off and you get another shot to go for the gold?
Yeah, it's been a tough, I guess, like year and a half, 2 years, with the pandemic and everything. So it extended the season a little bit longer than I was expecting, but it feels so good to be qualified and to be able to have another chance to compete at the Paralympic level and in Tokyo this year. So I'm extremely excited.
Yeah. What was that like? Kind of describe the last, I guess it would be 16, 17 months or so when right before the pandemic, you're probably preparing like it's any normal year, hopefully having that shot. And then we're all forced to pause and everything's put on hold. What was that like for you, kind of adjusting and having to pivot to, I guess, wait a whole year until you get that opportunity?
Yeah, it was difficult. Everyone had things being taken away from them. I was a senior at Cedarville University, going into my senior track season and final semester of nursing school. And when that pandemic hit, right before, I was gearing up for my first triathlon race of the season. I was getting ready for outdoor track season. I was getting ready for my final 2 classes of my semester for nursing. And so all those things were slowly one by one taken away from me. And it was kind of like, a blow each time. And then I was just holding on to, okay, college track was taken away. My, graduation was taken away, but I still have the Paralympics. I still have the Paralympics. They haven't taken that away. I was away from home whenever the lockdown happened. And so I was not able to travel home and be with family like most people were. And so I was away from family. Luckily, I was taken in by a teammate and her family for the majority of lockdown. But it was really difficult because, as athletes, we train for racing, and to not really have a goal as far as like when the next race was, it was really hard to keep going. And, it was kind of like, well, maybe the Paralympics are going to go, maybe they're not. And then finally getting the word that they had been postponed a whole year, it was just like, I don't know what to do. So it was really tough. And I think whenever the news first hit me, I was just kind of didn't really know where I was going to go with, the direction of sport, my life. I didn't really have a lot of money. I didn't really know where I was going to live. But then, taking a step back about, after the news had settled, it gave me a better perspective of, hey, wait, I actually have a whole another year to prepare to be the best I can be. I was able to graduate college, and so now I can focus solely on triathlon and training instead of, working as a student. And so I think I gained a better perspective, but that definitely didn't come at first.
Well, whenever I've spoken to Olympic athletes or Paralympic athletes, high achieving athletes, that desire, and you can just see it, their desire to be the very best is what separates them from everyone else. So tell me about that desire within you, how you've been able to bring that out to the point where you see, amazing results. Certainly a Paralympic gold medal is an incredible achievement, and you're going forward again, hopefully in 2021. Tell me about that desire within to compete and to compete at the highest level.
Yeah, I feel like I was born with it. I was gifted it from a very young age. I've always been competitive. I don't remember a time when I'm not competitive.
Right.
I have 2 sisters. I'm a middle child, and I was always looking up my older sister, and whatever she did, I wanted to do. I wanted to be just as fast, just as good. Going into like middle school and high school, I was still extremely competitive, and just wanting to follow that desire to compete, and that really drives me to be my best. It's more of a compulsion to better myself every day in life and in sports, and so that's what I knew that Paralympics was pretty much the top of era athletics and just athletics in general. Olympics is what everyone strives for, Paralympics, Olympics.
Yeah. And
I knew that that's where I wanted to end up. So that's what ultimately drove me to triathlon, because it was a really neat sport, and I wanted to better myself in all 3, not just one, and see what I can do at that highest level.
You've had obviously a lot of success, but that doesn't come without challenges, and certainly be a part of the Paralympics. I'm always amazed at the different athletes who overcome the challenges that are placed in front of them to compete at this highest level and to have a lot of success. And you had those challenges since you were very young. Can you tell us what happened and how you were able to adapt to those challenges at such a young age?
So I was born with a congenital condition. Congenital just means from birth. It's called amniotic band syndrome. So that is basically the amniotic sac in the womb gets around a body part, a limb, and cuts off the circulation. So it got around my left foot and cut the circulation off. And so I was born without my left foot. And I was born into a very athletic family, and a very just, competitive go-getter type spirit that just fueled my, I guess, desire for sport, for competition, and just to constantly be pushing myself and bettering myself. And I started with t-ball. Didn't really like that very much. I really loved soccer, played basketball, but I really didn't feel at home in those sports until I found running. My mom was a collegiate runner, and she was the cross country and track coach for my middle school and high school. And so my older sister was a early high school phenom and was just, breaking all these records. And so for me, I looked at her and said, I want to do that. Why can't I do that? And so I joined the cross country team, and early on fell in love with it and wanted to be just as fast as everyone else with 2 feet, even though I had 1 foot and was running with a prosthetic.
Wow. And amazingly, God has brought you to where he is, or where you are right now. Let's intersect that conversation a little bit, Grace, with faith. Tell me about your walk with Christ and how it's impacted your life and really driven you to be who you are today.
God has always been a huge part of my life. I was born into a religious family, following Christian beliefs, and we always attended church growing up. I went to a Christian middle school and high school, and then finished out my schooling at Cedarville University, which is a Baptist Christian college. And, just like life, faith kind of, has its waves and ups and downs. And I feel that whenever I was in middle school and high school, I kind of just blindly followed my parents and, the school, the teaching and everything. It wasn't until college that I moved into the dorms, was on my own, quote unquote, for the first time, still at a Christian university, but you are able to make more of your own decisions and kind of figure out, is this what I really believe, and test your beliefs and either further or kind of slip in your face. And college was an interesting time for me. The first half was super close to God. I felt very close to him. The second half was a little more challenging in my faith. And being an older athlete on the cross country and track team, I felt a lot of leadership roles coming my way. But I tended to kind of shy away from that. It wasn't until I think really after I graduated just this past year, God really kind of came back into my life, kind of full force of saying, look, showing me how important it is to trust in his timing and in his process, because, no one could have foreseen this pandemic coming. And it was a really tough time for a lot of people. And going into this year, I definitely wouldn't have been as strong as I am now, without going through the pandemic and without relearning how to depend on God. And this takes me back to just the June 27th Paralympic qualifier race. Leading up to that race, I was having a hard time finding joy in my day-to-day training. It's hard. And I was reminded by my family and my boyfriend that I don't do this for me. I was gifted this by God, and he has everything planned out in his timing, in his will. And the best I can do is glorify him, use his gifts to be the best of my ability and spread his love and his message. And that's really what's been driving me recently. And I hope to just further that and grow my connection with God even further.
That's really well said, Grace. And I was thinking about this too, when I was looking at, just kind of dates and things like that. You mentioned the June 27th qualifier, and you're currently 23 years old. When you won the gold medal in 2016, I think if I'm doing the math right, you were 18. So you were a
Correct.
different person at 18, I'm sure, than 23. But think about where you were then, the first time you won that gold medal, and where God has you today. What's the biggest difference in the Grace Norman at 18 that won the gold medal versus the 23-year-old that's going for another gold medal?
That's a really good question. And I do get asked that a lot. I think the 18, I feel like they're both athletes, 18-year-old Grace, 23-year-old Grace, people and athletes have the same characteristics of drive, desire, passion, competitiveness. But there are a lot of life experiences between 18 years old and 23 years old, and racing experience and growth in your faith and just testing and trying and going through life. I think physically there's a huge difference between the shape that I am in going into Tokyo than I was going into Rio. I'm a much stronger triathlete going into Tokyo because that's been my focus instead of just running and hoping that I can make it through the swim and the bike.
Right.
It's become more of a full rounded athlete. But a person, I've also grown to just appreciate the sport and racing more because it was taken away for that time that I wasn't sure. You know, we all weren't sure when life was going to open back up, if it was going to open back up, if we could make it through safely. And so it really helped me kind of take a step back and really appreciate what I've been given, being able to race all over the world and travel over the world and, you know, taking these experiences. So going into Tokyo, the 23-year-old Grace has a much bigger perspective than 18-year-old Grace of a scared, not quite sure if I belonged on that stage. Also having to worry about defending that title. 18-year-old Grace did not feel confident that she could win. 23-year-old Grace has raced so much more and gets to defend that gold medal title.
And has a lot more confidence, I would imagine, too, right?
Yes, correct.
Let's take a quick break from our conversation here on Sports Spectrum to tell you a little bit more about our friends at Compassion International and our Fill the Stadium initiative. COVID-19 last year wreaked havoc on the world. It also wreaked havoc on Compassion. See, 70,000 kids and their families in Compassion programs were going to be stuck without a sponsorship once everything shut down. 70,000 is also the capacity of the average pro football stadium. Thus, our football friends and other people in the world of sports teaming up with Compassion to stand in the gap and make sure that these kids do not go without the urgent support that they need. Things like essential food, nutritional supplements, hygiene essentials, medical screenings for COVID-19, and much more. We need your help. Check out fillthestadium.com to learn more and to donate. And here's an update. Right now, as we speak, 70,000 kids in desperate need of help. We've actually filled 56,000 seats. How amazing is that? You guys are awesome. 56,000 kids and their families being restored what COVID-19 had potentially destroyed. But here's the thing. There's still 14,000 seats left. That's our goal. We're going to hit it. 70,000 kids with Compassion's program. We're almost there, so we need your help. Providing essential food, medical care, and support for a child and their family during this pandemic. You can donate right now at fillthestadium.com. This is a stadium that cannot remain empty, and your dollars are actually working. Places like Peru, Honduras, Ecuador, Uganda, the Philippines. This is making an impact. Let's continue to make this impact and get to 70,000 kids. Fillthestadium.com to donate today. A stadium that cannot remain empty. Fillthestadium.com. She is Grace Norman joining us here on Sports Spectrum, the Paralympic Gold Medalist. Confidence and cockiness, there's a line there, right? And when you're an elite athlete, I think you can those lines can get blurred a little bit, but I think the way you explained it, there's a way to be confident, but still be humble and not get cocky. Is that, would you say that you've kind of, wrestled with both of those worlds and kind of seen what it's like to maybe be a little overconfident, if you will, but also be confident in your abilities?
Correct. As athletes, we know how hard we work each day. And if you don't have confidence in yourself and your abilities, in God, in your coach, then you're really not giving yourself the best opportunity to compete at your best level and at your potential. But there is that line where you don't want to be like, I'm going to win this, I'm going to win that, because, no one likes that type of person.
Yeah.
And so dealing with that line of knowing how to, take a compliment and say, yes, you're correct, I have worked hard for this, without kind of putting it in your face and, going on guesses. I always say, like, results speak for themselves.
Right.
I'll say I'm confident in my ability and results will show. So that's kind of where I stand on that.
When you were 18 and you won that gold medal, how do you think you handled success? Because you had a lot of success in high school. I saw that you were the first amputee to finish on the podium at a high school track and field state championship, and then winning a Paralympic gold medal. So success, and I would guess fame, for lack of a better word, I don't like that word, but attention, I guess. A lot of people know who you are. How are you handling that at 18 when you're still so young, like you said, and just, wide-eyed and trying to figure life out, and yet a lot of success is coming to your way at such a young age?
It was definitely interesting. I, had just graduated high school, was going into my first year at Cedarville University in college, and I had already missed a month of school. And so I came home and, everyone wanted me to speak places and do interviews. And I was like, look, I'm a month behind in nursing school. Like, this is not the time, So that initial shock was a little bit hard, just trying to get back to being normal, and having literally everyone in the college know my name, and I didn't know anyone because I was a freshman and coming in, and I was like, oh no. But I was raised in a very humble family. They taught us values about humility and thanking who was responsible, and giving honor to honor's due. And it wasn't just me who won that gold medal. I had a team of people behind me helping me reach that. And so they continue to help me deal with that. So my parents have been huge, even up to now, kind of navigating, helping me as far as planning different events and streamlining media. I now have an agent that's a little bit better, and helping me kind of keep things in check. But having fame and success can do two things to you. It can, blow your head way up and you can be super cocky and being like, yeah, I am the best. Or it can just, can really just give you that confidence. It's the same thing we just talked about, and help the athlete flourish in what they're doing instead of getting so caught up in that. And so I had a lot of help and guidance in kind of navigating all of that and working through that, the balance, having that balance of finding success, but able to tell my accomplishments and kind of use that as a networking and just kind of a celebration of what I had just accomplished.
Someday they might not remember you as a Paralympic gold medalist, Grace, because I read that, and you mentioned this, that you have a nursing degree. You're a registered nurse, and you want to begin pursuing a career in nursing. And who knows how many lives you're going to impact doing that amazing job. Tell me about why your love for nursing and your pursuit of nursing and to help others.
I was born into a medical family. My mom is a doctor. Going into college, my older sister, who I'm very close with, was also in nursing. And that's, that was honestly why I chose it in the first place, because I'd seen my mom be just a wonderful doctor. And then I'm very close with my older sister, and I was like, well, that looks like a good one. So I started it, and then it really became my own. I really just fell in love with it. I loved being able to have excitement in my workplace, but also being able to touch lives and and help and be that healing touch and that presence when these patients are, in tough situations. And so it became more of my own as I went through nursing school, and really developed my love for the different areas that some areas you don't like as much, and some you're really attached to. And I think finding what I really loved was really exciting for me, and I could start seeing a future in that and how I could give back, because triathlon, and I guess maybe not all elite athletes feel this way and professional athletes, but at least for me, triathlon can be a very selfish sport.
Yeah.
I train, 25 plus hours a week. And a lot of that is, along with that is a lot of sleep, a lot of food, a lot of just laying in bed and not not moving until you have to do what you're supposed to do on that day. And so it can be really selfish. You have to say no a lot of times. I say no to going out and staying up late, and it can be very selfish. And so for me, I am always looking for ways to give back, and I'm so excited to be able to start working as a nurse because I can touch so many lives and give back to what I've been given. I have been given so much as a professional athlete and just so much support and love, and if I can give just a touch of that back, that would just really be an amazing thing for me to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. The way that's said, I think in terms of how you are training yourself and disciplining yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that, but in a way to be giving of yourself and to be selfless, right? And give back to others is such a cool thing. And I know that God's going to honor that. And certainly it's the great commandment that I call it, which is to love God and love others. And you're going to be doing that as a nurse, Grace Norman. My last question for you, you kind of alluded to it a little bit in telling us about what God has been showing you over the last year or so, but what's he teaching you today? As we record this, you're getting ready. The Paralympic Games in Tokyo 2020 are going to take place at the end of August. And, God teaches us something new every single day. What's he teaching you today when you think about the Lord and where he's brought you? What's the great lesson he's showing you right now?
I would say the great lesson that he's just unfolding every day is my grace is sufficient for you. And he will get me through every day, because this is the hardest I have ever pushed myself in athletics and in life. And there are days when I just break down because I am so exhausted. I'm just so worn down emotionally, physically. I live alone. I'm in a new city, and it can be really, really difficult. And I'm reminded by my family, my boyfriend, that you're allowed to pray. Like it's there. You pray for energy, for just getting you through that day, and that's what he promises. He doesn't say, this grace is for you for this week. No, this is for today. This is for right now. That's what you need to focus on. Because I'm a planner. I love to see what's going to happen in the week, the next day. But that's kind of when anxiety creeps in, because that's not what God's covering. I mean, he promises that everything's going to be okay, but he promises that his grace is sufficient for this day. And that's what he's been showing me these past few weeks, especially this past week today. And it's just a great reminder to just remember that.
Well, you got a first name. That's good. That's a good reminder of that too, Grace Norman. And God's grace is sufficient. So that helps. Listen, that was wonderfully said. We wish you nothing but the best. We hope you get the gold medal in 2021 here, and we'll be watching in Tokyo in late August. And congratulations on all your success. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us here on Sports Spectrum, and all the best to you.
Thank you so much.
And many thanks to Grace Norman for sharing her powerful story here with us today on Sports Spectrum. You can read stories like Grace's and others on sportspectrum.com. Our website, all of our content there is free. You can check it out at sportspectrum.com. If you're looking for a daily devotional, it's there. If you're looking to listen to any of our podcasts on the Sports Spectrum Podcast Network, they are there. And then, of course, stories on the intersection of sports and faith in Jesus Christ, each and every day updated on our website, sportsspectrum.com. And whatever app you're listening to this podcast on, if you could do us a favor, click that follow button. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you now follow. It's what they used to do when you said subscribe to the podcast, but now the button has apparently been changed to follow. So follow us here at Sports Spectrum on your podcast app, your favorite podcast app. That way, you never miss an episode of all that we have going on here at the Sports Spectrum podcast. And we have updated stories and conversations coming to you 3 to 4 times a week. So you don't want to miss an episode. And again, the best way is just to follow this podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Make sure you check out our website again, sportsspectrum.com, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts as well. It helps get the word out, letting people know about our podcast and certainly about what we're doing here at Sports Spectrum, which is bringing Jesus back into the conversation. Also, tell someone about Sports Spectrum. That helps get the word out and lets people know that we're trying to bring stories just like everybody else is, but we're also trying to bring Jesus back into the conversation. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time with a brand new episode right here on Sports Spectrum's podcast. Have a great rest of your day.